I promise you, what you are about to see is one of the most brilliantly conducted attacks in chess history. This is what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object. Garry Kasparov, with white, the greatest attacker of all time, unleashes his full firepower. But across the board with the black pieces, Anatoly Karpov, the master of positional chess and an absolutely amazing defender, plays a6, the Ruy Lopez Morphy line. Bishop drops back. These two players know each other better than any other two rivals in all of chess history. This is game 20 of their fourth consecutive World Championship match. They have played each other more than anybody else. They are the two greatest players in the world at this time, without any doubt. And they are like fire and ice. Going into this game in Lyon in 1990, the World Championship match, Kasparov is up 1 point after 19 games. They have traded blow for blow. Kasparov wins one, Karpov wins. Kasparov wins, Karpov wins, with a bunch of draws in between. The last game was won by Kasparov. It's a 24-game match, and that means that after this game there will be four games left. And since Kasparov won the last game, it means that if he wins this, he will have a huge chance to defend his World Championship title. And he plays rook to e1. And we will just see him go for the most insane, all-out, amazing attack. Karpov kicks the bishop. This is all theory. And I've shown a lot of these romantic games of chess back from the 1800s, where we have all these amazing sacrifices and beautiful games. Of course, back in the day, they were way better at attacking than they were at defending. So those brilliant, beautiful old games, they often have this asterisk next to them that a better defender could have turned the game around and often refuted the sacrifices made against them and turned the brilliancies into blunders. Karpov is not such a player. Karpov is cold as ice. He is a maestro on the chessboard, one of the greatest chess players of all time, and he has this boa constrictor style, slow, strategical, methodical. So it's not going to be enough just to sacrifice a bunch of pieces and confuse him. So Kasparov has to use a bit of his old friend, the wizard from Riga, the magician from Riga, Tal, a little bit of the Tal magic maybe, to play just this absolute masterpiece of a game. And with this move, pawn to d4, we are about to exit the opening stage of the game. This has been a Ruy Lopez opening, and the variation here with the bishop coming to b7 is called the Zaitsev variation, named after Zaitsev, Grandmaster Zaitsev, who invented it and who was on Karpov's team. So Karpov is being helped by a bunch of grandmasters with the preparation, just as Kasparov is, and he is playing a variation even invented by one of his assistants here. Theory continues here. This little move, rook coming to e8, counteracting this rook. It's all at this point a battle. This is it. At this point, it's all a battle for the center, and we can see white has this nice pawn duo, contrasted by black's pawn duo that is not advanced in the same way. That we can see black has the first move advantage and got this in. So how will this unfold? What is the logical conclusion from this position? Let's start with this knight, getting the knight from B to D2. Where is that going? Karpov slides the bishop back, being very protective of his king, not blocking the rook, creating a harmony of the pieces, ready to take on the attack, just saying, just come. And Kasparov lashes out with a4. Karpov still playing methodically. Yeah, no, I'm not going to react to this. I already reacted to this. I was already ready for this. No, I'm going to react to something you may do in 5 moves time. So that's how Karpov plays. He sees your threat before you even come up with the idea, and he has defended against it before you even conceptualize what it is you want to do. And then when you get the idea and you think, okay, maybe I could do this, oh, he already defended against that. But it's not you who's playing Karpov, it's Kasparov. And now this bishop is rerouting. A little added benefit of moving this pawn up here, so there's room for the bishop here. Looking at the king. Kasparov not in the mood for a long grind fest against the positional maestro, no. And Karpov is saying, okay, let me put a dent and draw the first blot here on the chessboard. Put a little dent in your center control. He takes on d4. Kasparov recaptures. And this exchange makes it so that this pawn is no longer here, and when it's no longer there, it's no longer defending b4. And that means this knight can now jump in, the first one to cross the magical threshold in the middle of the battlefield. This is white's side of the board, this is black's side of the board, and this one is the first to infiltrate, hitting the bishop. Humbly, the bishop drops back. So he wants to maintain, Kasparov does, the power of the bishop, but it can exercise its control from all the way on the back rank. And Karpov is saying, okay, let me get some more space. Play c5, challenging again the center here. And Kasparov says, I will play pawn to d5, and this is a good moment to just take a little bit of a pause and think about the position. What does this move do? It locks the pawn structure, is what it does. So Kasparov does have a strong pawn on black's side of the board. It is attacking squares here, pretty close to the black army, but it is also locked. It's static now. This can't move. Not this can't easily move either, because it's very well defended. So a little bit of dynamism has been lost. Also, the dark squares, it looks like they are very much under black's control right now. But maybe Kasparov has an idea with that. Maybe he's going to attack the dark squares, not with pawns, but with something else. There is also now ideas for Karpov So he goes here immediately after this move. What is that about? Well, he's immediately looking at the weaknesses left after these pawns can't move backwards. So now with the knight coming back, where is the knight going? Well, it can come here. And it can be traded off, but we can recapture. But Karpov can hold back on that move and even consider at some point a move like f5 as well to further destabilize if needed. This is vintage Karpov style, maneuvering the pieces, making sure everything is well defended for the threats that may materialize 5 moves in the future. But what about the threats that will materialize 10 moves in the future? And that's the kind of move that Kasparov can play. But this rook, it's starting like, let's get a small inkling here of just beautiful, beautiful attack, and I can't wait to show it to you. Karpov does play f5, and this pawn cannot easily be taken. So this other rook comes here to defend the pawn. But that's not where the rook is going necessarily in the long run. This is just a little stop on the way to its final destination. The knight now comes back, so you see how Karpov played this, moving the knight out of the way, looking a little bit at this square, but making it possible to play f5, then getting the knight back. But now it's better because it's behind the f5 pawn. And Kasparov plays knight to h2. That's such a cool move. I bet you can't figure out why that's made. Maybe we can see some of the points. One point is that with this knight gone, this rook can come now to g3. But at a crucial point, there is, in the attack later, there is a different, more subtle point to this knight move. And the genius of Karpov can be seen here, because this queen is thinking about entering these squares. Of course, it's not going to do it right now, because the knight is defended here. But when this bishop is opened up, imagine this one moving and this one moving, there will be a bishop takes on h6, and there's like this huge attack coming. You cannot really do much with these pieces to stop it, but you can do this. You can move the king preemptively out of the way from the attack that will materialize in 3 or 4 moves. But that's not really the Kasparov attack here. The real Kasparov attack is now in about maybe 7 moves. And he plays pawn to b3, pawn to b3, b3. Suddenly, this pawn structure makes sense now. Suddenly, we see that this bishop is not only thinking about some sacrifice on h6. Suddenly, we see that all of White's army are enabling this bishop to become extremely strong on b2 with this attack on the dark squares. But it's Karpov to move, and he starts chipping away at the bunker in which this bishop wants to hide, so he can make an attack against it. The pawns are exchanged, and he pushes here. And I wonder why this pawn cannot be taken. Why not, for instance, knight takes? If knight takes, let's just try that out. If knight takes, we suddenly notice that this knight can come in and capture here, because this is no longer defended by the knight. And you can see Karpov defending this position because he is now starting to have threats of his own. So he is defending this pawn by attacking this one. So the knight is tied down to the e4 pawn. So instead of capturing, we do see bishop coming to b2. Has a very cool role in the game, this bishop. Karpov captures on e4. The pawn is recaptured by the knight. That is why it stayed on d2. And this is the sacrifice of a pawn. Kasparov giving up this pawn, so now his beautiful center is completely controlled and destroyed by Karpov. But notice that this knight is moving away from the king. So rook to g3, looking at the king, all of a sudden working with this bishop. It is defended, and Karpov wants to defend it further, played rook to e6 with a defense here as well. But now the knight jumps into action. Knight comes here. And preemptively, this was already defended from this attack. Now we need to control, as black, we need to control the light squares around the king, because the queen will come in at some point, like knight takes. Remember, you can't capture here, you would have to capture with the rook, but you would also want the queen to be able to stop this queen from coming in here further down the line. So that's why Karpov slides his queen over here, working with these two in attacking this, and also stopping any queen h5 ideas. And immediately Kasparov played this move. That just, I will just show it to you, and you can just see the beautiful attack unfold from here. He sacrifices his knight. So of course the pawn can't take, that's illegal. We have this super strong bishop here. So that's why of course Karpov played this. But he's not capturing. He's actually not capturing this. Let me show you why. If he does capture this, the queen can slide up with an attack on the rook. Of course the rook is not defended. This pawn cannot defend here, so it would have to move. So let's say it goes back here, and now the queen comes in here, and it is actually impossible to defend against all these. There's check here, there is check, takes, and mate, and there's too many pieces too close to the king, and the defenders are too far away. So you can't capture with the rook, mostly because this bishop is so strong on the dark squares. So Karpov does not capture the knight. He's saying, I moved the king out of the way so the knight capturing here wouldn't be check. And I didn't. I'm not capturing here. I have the queen here to stop your queen from coming in. I realized that this bishop here is what is the cause of all my problems. So he pushes this pawn, closing down this bishop, and thinking that, okay, Kasparov can move this bishop somewhere, and I can start to defend, maybe even contemplate capturing with the pawn here. But this knight that came here, here, here is not done. It goes to f5, sacrificing this bishop, which must now be taken. So Kasparov loses the bishop, Karpov plays, pawn takes bishop, and the queen jumps in. And just look at this. Okay, he lost this bishop, but he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces in the attack now. Here, Karpov played this bishop back. And later there will be a little bit of a problem with disconnecting these two. So the rook is no longer defending the queen is no longer defending the rook. But this bishop is looking at this knight and on this queen, and if it can exchange itself, for instance, for this knight, Karpov should be winning the game because he is up a full bishop. But he's up a full bishop against Kasparov, and there is this super cool quote by former world champion Mikhail Botvinnik, who was first Kasparov's teacher, and then they had the Kasparov Botvinnik school together later on. And Botvinnik is like this, the father, the patriarch of Soviet chess, and he knew all the world champions. And he said, if Mikhail Tal sacrifices a piece against you, you shall take it. You must take it. If Petrosyan sacrifices a piece against you, don't take it. And if Kasparov sacrifices a piece against you, resign the game. And let's see why. Queen h4, check. Karpov blocks the check. And here you may be wondering, can't you just come in and capture here? And I'll show you why Kasparov didn't play this. So you may think that you would be deterred from playing this move because of this. Why on earth didn't you just move the king out of the way of the check? Well, there is a problem. Oh, excuse me, the rook is here. There is a problem with this rook actually on the back rank, and that is that this king move. If you move this king, you lose to this king move specifically. So the situation is hopeless. But let's just say we move this bishop just to show something, and now this knight would come in here, threatening, of course, this checkmate. And there's no defense. Like let's say you try this here with all these threats. This move here takes, protected here. The king is in dire straits. The queen must move because otherwise she will be taken. But there's no good squares, you know. It's being taken. This is made. So this is an overwhelming attack. So it doesn't work. So let's reset and let me make sure that I have everything correctly set up here. Yes, this is the position. So that is why you cannot. So the king is here. So you cannot, after this check, you cannot move the king. Okay, so that is why against this check, Karpov blocks like this, and it is captured. And now with this bishop going down here, we can actually capture like so. And in this position, to continue the attack with absolutely devastating effects, Kasparov played the best move, the most aggressive move, the winning move, but it does not look like an aggressive move. It's a king h2. Absolutely necessary. And after this, the attack is just completely overwhelming. And this is because he is thinking about sacrificing this rook. He wants to sacrifice this rook. It's fine. He can move this knight out of the way somewhere, and the queen can capture it. But if the king was back here, it would capture with check. So, and then he would have to move, and then Karpov would have another move. And Kasparov does not want that. He wants to control the flow of the game. So after this here, Karpov comes up with a different defensive plan. He plays the queen to e5, pinning this rook to the king, saying, okay, with the king here now, you can't move this rook because I'm pinning it. So I could capture a king. That's illegal. But knight comes to g5, exposing an attack on the queen. And if you do capture the rook now, you'll notice that it is not with check. And if it's not with check, that means that Kasparov has a free move here. And knight to f7 is checkmate. Knight checks the king. The rook takes care of these two squares, and the bishop, the sniper all the way down here, takes care of this square. So you cannot capture the rook. So the queen has to move. She comes here, lending a bit of defense to this pawn. But that means this rook is now free to move and enters the position again with just devastating effect. And just look at this attack. How everything makes sense, but it's like magic somehow. Kasparov's just throwing everything. Every single piece is in the attack. And at the crucial moment, he'll play a little move like king here if it's needed to make everything work like clockwork. Now, bishop to f5 to block this important bishop so that we will not have these checkmates like this. You can see how a move like this, even with the queen gone, would no longer be checkmate because the king would have this escape square. So that's the idea here. But yeah, here we see, the cherry on top on this amazing game. If it was not already immortal in the history books, in the annals of chess, it certainly will be after this move. Even though, Kasparov is even a little bit unhappy with something he did, but I think I'll let him explain it. I have a Kasparov button over here that I will try to press and see if we can make Kasparov explain the next move here.
Anyway, it's here I play this very nice move. Queen takes h6.
This is fantastic because in a world championship, it is very unusual to have queen sacrifices.
Yes, queen sacrifices. Yes, this is true. Queen takes h6, knight f7 check. Queen d6, and here it's unforgivable mistake. You should take with the rook. Yeah, I know, but I don't want to take all his pieces, from the board.
Because after rook takes g6,
it's a mate.
Yes, you would mate him just by removing the rook next move.
Yes, this is true. Knight e7, then I took on e7, bishop takes e7, and rook g.
And rook mate. Here, checkmate, because no square for the king, and it is mated with the bishop.
Yeah, unfortunately, this bishop could... Okay, I took his queen with the bishop.
And I think the rest is just...
Okay, I have an extra rook again.
Wasn't that amazing? Let's take a look at what he just said there. So he does sacrifice his queen like this. This is, of course, check. Of course, the bishop cannot capture. It's the point of the rook being here. So the queen must capture. But then this check again, and even with the bishop here being blocked, king comes here, and I mean, Kasparov is down a lot of material right now. Could even maybe consider capturing the queen, but no, that won't really work actually. Instead, this move is the killer, capturing here, because it's check, and leaving only one possible move to defend. The only legal move in the position is to block with the queen. And here Kasparov captured the queen with check, with the bishop, which he deemed an unforgivable mistake. Can you forgive Kasparov? Is it truly unforgivable to play this move? So his point is that if he had played the best move, rook takes. Okay, let's try to make some moves. Okay, let's say we make a queen with something we could do. This super powerful bishop. I'll just move backwards, no problem. Now make a move again. And we'll just make any move just to show the point. And the point is that now you can just move the rook backwards and it's checkmate. There's no way to stop this checkmate. You can try any combination of moves for black. This checkmate idea is unstoppable. So if we just put this position back here, that is why Kasparov deemed it an unforgivable mistake to capture with the bishop, even though it is still absolutely 100% winning. Karpov played this, and the rook down here is captured, like so. Bishop slides out of the way, and Kasparov has to give a piece back now. He plays this, and there are a couple of moves left, so I'll just show you. So the rook is attacking here. This knight wants to move, but it can't because it would hang this. So Karpov defends the knight, but the other knight is attacked. This, of course, is check from the rook, but Karpov can capture here, but takes with check, and there is nothing more. Like you could capture here, which was not played. The game was resigned because if you look after here, if you look at the position here, we can see we have a rook versus a bishop and a rook versus a knight. Our rook is stronger than a bishop, our rook is stronger than a knight. Also, we have 2 pawns versus 4 pawns, so the position is 100% easily winning. This is a trivial win, particularly, of course, for world-class players, but you don't even need to be a world-class player. I bet any master could win this against the strongest chess engine in the world. So therefore, Karpov resigned. There were now 4 games left, and he was down 2 games in the match. So it was a very tough situation, but he kept on fighting, and Kasparov kept on fighting, and there was only one more draw. So 4 games left, and only 1 draw. So maybe you can take a look at these games if you want to see some very fighting chess. These 2 players always give us beauty on the chessboard. I hope that you enjoyed this amazing attacking game as much as I did. And if you did and you want to support the channel, you can consider joining my Patreon. Your support helps me keep making high quality chess content. The link is in the description. Thank you so much, and bye for now. Bye.